Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be exploring the often really surprising forces that shape how we humans behave.
Oh, okay.
And to guide us, we're going to be using The Social Animal by David Brooks.
Yeah, this book is, I mean, it's packed with a lot of insights that you really wouldn't expect. It's
Yeah.
going to make you really rethink how you make your decisions, how you build relationships,
Oh,
and even how you understand your own place in the world.
I think one of the things that struck me right away was Brooks really pushing back against this idea that we're these purely rational beings
Yeah.
and saying that a lot of policies have failed because they just don't take into account this whole other world of like the unconscious and emotions and biases and all this stuff.
You know what's really interesting about that is he makes this point that so many policies fail.
We're not just like empty vessels that you can pour policies into and expect them to perfectly play out.
And he uses the example of efforts to boost economic mobility.
Right.
Like a lot of policies focused on like education or job training, which are obviously very important.
Sure.
But they don't always address those sort of underlying psychological factors, like
Right.
maybe even from childhood, that shape our sort of our place in the world.
Like we're working against these invisible scripts in our own minds.
Yeah. And these scripts are formed often unconsciously.
Yeah.
Like he tells this really interesting story about Douglas Hofstadter.
Okay.
You know, he's this scientist
Yeah.
who had this really profound realization after his wife died.
Oh.
He realized that her essence, like her impact on his life wasn't just a memory.
Mhm.
It was like woven into the actual fabric of his brain,
Wow.
residing in his unconscious mind.
That's so wild.
I know, and it made him see the unconscious not just as like this dark basement
Right.
of repressed desires, but as this realm where emotions, beliefs, and even spiritual connections
Right.
were like forged and really embedded.
Yeah, that's a really powerful image.
I know.
And it makes you think about how interconnected we all are,
Mhm.
even on this level that we don't even really have access to.
Right.
So I'm really curious how this unseen world of the unconscious plays out in our relationships with other people.
Well, Brooks, he introduces us to this couple, Rob and Julia, and their story kind of unfolds throughout the book.
Okay.
Their first date is, it's like a perfect example of the unconscious at work.
Yeah.
You know, Rob is, he's drawn to Julia for reasons he doesn't really fully grasp.
Right.
Brooks explains that he's responding to these universal standards of beauty,
Okay.
like her waist-to-hip ratio and clear skin,
Yeah.
and it's all backed by scientific research.
So even when we think we're like making these personal choices,
Yeah.
it's really these ancient like evolutionary forces kind of tugging at us in the background.
It's almost like biology meets the dating world.
Oh, totally.
Right.
And so what else is going on?
Yeah.
Are they like sizing each other up in other ways?
Well, yeah, Brooks suggests that they're also sort of subconsciously
Okay.
evaluating each other's intelligence
Uh-huh.
by the cues in their vocabulary.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, he thinks that we're drawn to partners who match our intellectual wavelength,
Makes sense.
and we're making these judgments without even realizing it.
Wow, so much is happening under the surface that
Listen,
we're
I mean-
not even aware of.
Brooks doesn't stop there. He brings pheromones into the mix.
Oh, yeah, the pheromones.
While they're laughing and talking, they're also exchanging pheromones,
Yeah.
which triggers all these physiological responses in their bodies.
Nah.
Their cortisol levels drop. They feel more relaxed and
Since
connected.
their bodies are conspiring to bring them together.
Exactly.
Wow. So there's this whole like chemical symphony happening that we're not even aware of
Mhm.
that's like orchestrating our attraction.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It really is. It makes you appreciate how complex the interplay is
Yeah.
between,
Yeah,
our biology and our behavior.
absolutely. But I mean, this doesn't always lead to like perfect harmony, does it?
Not always.
Like I'm sure things get more complicated.
Oh, yeah, as they navigate married life.
Mm-hmm.
Brooks, he points out these funny ways that their unconscious habits kind of clash.
Oh, really?
Like, their different approaches to grocery shopping become, almost symbolic of a deeper conflict.
Interesting.
Rob is very goal-oriented. He's like, pizza tonight, quiche tomorrow.
Okay.
Julia stocks up on ingredients, flour, sugar, eggs,
Yeah.
but with no real meal plan.
I can see how that would cause some tension.
Exactly.
Yeah, like it seems like such a small thing,
Yeah.
but it speaks to these like bigger ways of
Mhm.
seeing the world.
And that's just one example of how those unconscious patterns really play out.
Mm.
Brooks also hints at Julia's her kind of complex relationship with her own sexuality, revealing how, biological drives, societal pressures, and unconscious desires
Yeah.
can all kind of get mixed up in a way that even she doesn't fully understand.
So whether it's like, shaping our attraction
Right.
or even just how we plan our meals
Mm-hmm.
or even, our deepest desires, this
Yeah.
unconscious world
Yeah.
is like such a powerful force that we have to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Brooks argues that, understanding the human animal
Yeah.
means diving deep into this hidden world that shapes so much of how we behave.
And that's where this whole concept of map making comes in, right?
Yeah.
He talks about how from the very beginning,
Right.
children are constantly
Yeah.
constructing these internal models of the world
Yeah.
based on what they experience.
Yeah, and he uses the story of Rob and Julia's son, Harold,
Okay.
to really illustrate this.
Okay, cool.
And Brooks, he doesn't shy away from
Mhm.
the raw and often messy realities of being a parent.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
He talks about the sleep deprivation,
Yeah.
the constant demands of a baby,
Right.
and the impact that all this has on a couple's relationship.
Yeah.
He even describes this really funny scenario where Julie is engaging in what he calls impersonator training with Harold. She's like molding his little face into expressions that look like famous figures.
That's so cute.
I know.
But it also makes you think like,
Yeah.
is she like shaping his facial expressions
Yeah.
or is she shaping like how he sees and interacts with the world?
I think that's the beauty of Brooks's insights, is that he's showing us that these seemingly simple actions have these much deeper implications
Yeah.
for how children develop.
Yeah.
And on a more serious note, he brings in the still face research,
Right.
where scientists ask mothers to interrupt their interactions with their babies
Right.
and just have this blank expression. And the babies get incredibly distressed
Wow.
because, those facial expressions from their mothers are so crucial for them
Yeah.
to be able to regulate their emotions.
It's amazing to think that just like a simple smile can have such a huge impact on
Huge.
how a baby's brain develops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also talks about how important play is for kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Those activities that seem so frivolous,
Yes.
but are actually crucial for learning.
He talks about Harold and how he's just fascinated by peekaboo
Yeah.
and other predictable surprises.
I remember that with my kids. They could not get enough of peekaboo.
I know. But these games are not just about fun.
Right.
They're actually helping him grasp patterns and develop a sense of mastery over his environment.
Yeah.
And Brooks argues that all these early experiences lay the foundation
Yeah.
for a child's ability to learn and adapt and make sense of the world.
Like they're building the mental scaffolding for all future learning.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And then as Harold gets older,
Mm-hmm.
Brooks takes us to like his high school years,
Oh, yeah.
which is, talk about a time of
Very cool.
like intense social dynamics
Right.
and pressure to conform.
Oh, my gosh. So much pressure.
Brooks captures that like almost tribal nature of high school,
Yeah.
where social status and acceptance are like the most important things.
Totally. And he even points out how socializing is so important that it continues even during what he calls like dormant periods, like classes.
Right. Like they're never really off.
They're not. Their brains are constantly absorbing information, not just from textbooks,
Yeah.
but also from the social cues and interactions that are happening around them.
Yeah, like I remember feeling like I learned more in the hallway than I did
Oh, me too.
in some of my classes.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like these informal learning environments are so powerful.
They are.
And speaking of learning, Harold has this really interesting encounter with his English teacher, Miss Taylor.
Oh, yeah, Miss Taylor.
Where was her story?
She's she's a fascinating character. She's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
And she's passionate about teaching, but she's also a little bit emotionally needy.
Uh-huh.
Brooks actually describes her as a superstar
Okay.
because she understands that, traditional teaching methods,
Yeah.
a lot of times they don't engage students on a deeper level.
Right. They're just kind of like going through the motion.
Exactly. So she really focuses on fostering deep learning,
Hmm.
encouraging Harold to really connect information in meaningful ways.
Cool. So she's not just about like memorizing facts.
Yeah.
She's about like really understanding.
She wants to spark those aha
Yeah.
moments of genuine understanding.
Cool.
Brooks uses the example of a Greek history project.
Okay.
Instead of just having Harold regurgitate facts, she encourages him to encode information, deeply make connections, and blend these seemingly disparate ideas.
Oh.
And this leads to a pivotal moment for Harold.
Okay.
He has this incredible aha experience
Yeah.
when he suddenly connects these ancient Greek concepts of motivation to his own life.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's so true how like these unexpected connections
Yeah.
can just suddenly change how you see everything.
Yeah, it's like the knowledge clicks into place,
Yeah.
but on a much deeper level.
Totally. And Brooks uses this example to illustrate this bigger point about like what it means to be an expert.
Exactly. He argues that true expertise in any field isn't just about accumulating knowledge.
Right.
It's about seeing patterns, making connections, and understanding the deeper structure of a subject.
Yeah.
He uses the example of chess grandmasters.
Okay.
They don't see individual pieces. They see these formations and patterns on the board.
So cool. So it's about moving beyond the details and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Got it. So we've talked about the unconscious. We've talked about childhood development.
Yeah.
And now Brooks brings in this theme of like culture and environment and how that shapes us, right?
Absolutely. To illustrate this, he introduces us to Erica.
Okay.
She's a young woman from a very different background than Harold.
Okay.
She attended a school, that was specifically designed to address the challenges of poverty.
What?
And Brooks contrasts Harold's really structured upbringing, he calls it concerted cultivation, with Erica's more chaotic, natural growth environment.
Got it. So their childhoods represent like two very different,
totally different
cultural experiences.
And Brooks is he's drawing on the work of sociologist Annette Leroux here to sort of explain these differences.
So how do those like cultural differences actually show up?
Well, Brooks, he dives into some fascinating examples. He talks about how Chinese people and Americans scan visual scenes differently.
Okay.
Like Chinese individuals tend to take in the whole scene, including the background, while Americans focus more on the central object.
So it's like our cultures are literally shaping how we see.
Yeah. Oh, they are. It's like we're wearing these cultural lenses that color our perceptions.
Totally. And he doesn't just talk about like visual perception.
No, he
Right. He talks about like
he talks about cultural variations in responses to alcohol.
Right. Like some cultures become more aggressive when they drink.
Yes.
Others more amorous.
Exactly. And it's all
crazy.
I know. And he goes on to explain that all these cultural differences are a product of what he calls emergent systems.
Okay. Remind me what that means again.
Okay. So remember the ant colony?
Oh, yeah.
It's the same idea.
Okay.
These complex patterns arise from the interactions of individuals, but there's no central control,
so cultures are like giant ant colonies.
Exactly. And it highlights the fact that that cultures aren't static.
Right.
They're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Shaped by the actions and beliefs of all the individuals within that society.
So it's this like bottom up process.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And it brings us to a pivotal point in Erica's journey.
Okay.
She enters the workforce and she encounters this character who embodies a very different way of seeing the world.
Oh.
His name is Harrison.
Okay.
He's a brilliant but really arrogant hedge fund manager.
Oh boy, I sense like a clash of cultures coming.
Oh, there's definitely a clash.
Okay.
So Harrison is a classic example of someone who prioritizes data and logic above all else.
Okay.
He dismisses anything that doesn't fit into his rational framework.
Got it.
Brooks gives an example of him just completely dismissing cultural differences in economic performance. He attributes everything to government regulations,
right,
ignoring all these social norms, historical contexts, and cultural influences.
It's like he's trying to fit like the messiness of human behavior into a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing Erica's not having it.
No, Erica, having experienced the world from a very different place, she knows that there's more to the story. She
Okay.
realizes that emotional intelligence
Yeah.
and empathy and the ability to understand and adapt to different cultural contexts
Right.
are just as important as raw intelligence and data.
So it's like she's learning that to really thrive in the world, you need like this more holistic approach,
Yes,
right? One that brings together data and intuition,
exactly.
logic and empathy.
That's right. And it leads to, to one of Brooks's most compelling arguments,
Yeah.
which is this idea that that we need to move beyond the traditional model of purely rational decision making.
Okay, I'm really interested to hear more about this. What does he propose as an alternative?
He introduces this fascinating concept of metis,
Quite.
which is basically practical wisdom developed through experience and intuition.
Got it. So it's not just about like book smarts.
No, it's about understanding that
Right.
that the world is messy and
Yeah.
unpredictable,
Yeah,
and
right.
sometimes our biggest decisions are informed by our gut feelings
Mm-hmm.
and a nuanced understanding of context, not just by cold hard data.
So it's about trusting our instincts.
Yes,
And drawing on the wisdom that comes from lived experience.
exactly. He contrasts Métis with these, these purely rational approaches that can sometimes lead to disastrous outcomes.
Oh, like what?
He gives the example of Erica's company making some really terrible decisions during a recession.
Okay.
They were so focused on cost-cutting measures
Mm.
that they ended up eroding social bonds and morale within the company.
Oof. So they were so focused on the numbers
Yeah.
that they forgot about like the human element.
Totally. And their short-sighted decisions totally backfired.
Yeah. And he also talks about these cognitive biases, right?
Oh, yeah, those mental shortcuts.
Yeah.
That can unconsciously influence our choices.
It's like we think we're being so rational, but really there's all these other forces at play.
He discusses things like, priming, anchoring, framing expectations,
Yeah.
all of which can subtly skew our perceptions and kind of lead us astray.
That's so interesting. It's like all these pieces are unconscious drives,
Right.
cultural influences,
Yeah.
cognitive biases are kind of like constantly interacting
Yeah.
to shape our decisions.
It's like we're in this constant dance with these
Correct.
unseen forces.
That's a great way to put it.
And as we delve deeper into the book, Brooks really emphasizes the importance of relationships and community for well-being and fulfillment.
So we're kind of coming full circle here.
Yeah.
We started with the unconscious shaping our relationships, and now we're back to the idea that relationships are essential for our well-being.
Right. It's a central theme throughout the book.
Yeah.
Brooks shows how Harold and Erica, despite all their professional successes,
Yeah.
they struggle in their marriage.
Oh, wow.
We're harboring resentments.
Wow.
It's taking a toll on their happiness.
So even when you have like the outward markers of success, that doesn't mean that you're like happy and fulfilled.
Brooks even depicts Harold's descent into alcohol abuse,
Wow.
illustrating how, even someone with knowledge and insight
Right.
can succumb to these destructive patterns when they're isolated and disconnected from meaningful relationships.
It's like a reminder that we all need those connections to really thrive.
And the turning point for Harold
Yeah.
comes when he connects with a group of teenagers on a canoe trip.
Oh, wow.
He rediscovers the joy of mentorship and the power of human connection.
That's beautiful.
And it's in the simple act of giving back and connecting with others
Yeah.
that he begins to heal and find meaning
That's so powerful.
outside of his own struggles.
It's like the smallest acts of connection can sometimes have the biggest impact.
I think so.
Yeah, that's really cool. So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, we've covered like a lot.
We have.
From the unconscious to
Yes.
childhood
Right.
to
At this
culture.
significant-
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
So before we move on to the next part, I want to leave you with a question
Okay.
for our listeners too.
Okay.
Considering everything that we've talked about today, about the unconscious
Right.
and culture and how all this stuff kind of interacts, how can we approach the decisions we make, the relationships we build,
Yeah.
and the challenges we face in society with more wisdom and understanding?
That's a great question. I think it's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Yeah, and we'll explore that more in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. See you then.
One of the things that really stood out to me was just how Brooks kind of weaves together all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
It's not just psychology. He
Yeah.
brings in sociology, neuroscience, even a little bit of history and philosophy.
It's true.
It's really cool how he's able to kind of create this rich tapestry of human behavior.
He's like a master chef, bringing all these different ingredients together.
I love that analogy.
The data, the anecdotes, the research findings, and he blends them all together to create something really, I don't know, delicious, and thought-provoking.
So speaking of delicious, I have to ask you about this concept of métis.
Oh, yeah. Métis.
Practical wisdom.
Yeah. What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, think of it as kind of like street smarts, that ability to navigate these complex situations where there's no clear-cut answer.
Right. Life is messy.
Life is messy. It's not just about book knowledge or analytical skills. It's about, drawing on your experience, your intuition, even your gut feelings.
Yeah. It's like that saying, common sense isn't so common.
Exactly.
It's like we take for granted the wisdom that comes from, having lived and experienced things.
Brooks contrasts this practical wisdom with the kind of, purely rational approach that can sometimes lead us astray.
Give me an example.
He gives the example of those, those financial analysts who thought they had mastered the economic cycle.
Right.
They created this great moderation. They were so confident in their models and their data that they completely missed the warning signs of the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that even the smartest people can get things wrong. When they're relying too much on, abstract models and not enough on, actual...
And not enough on human behavior.
Yeah, human behavior.
Brooks isn't saying that we should abandon reason altogether.
Right.
He's just advocating for a more balanced approach, one that recognizes the limits of pure rationality and embraces the value of intuition, experience, and a really nuanced understanding of context.
Yeah, find that sweet spot between, the head and the heart, the data and the intuition.
Now, I want to talk about one of my favorite parts of the book, which is his exploration of childhood development.
Cool.
He dives deep into this idea of, map making.
Yeah.
How children from the very beginning are constantly constructing these internal models of the world.
It's so wild to think about how, the things we experience as kids, even the ones that seem, so insignificant, can have such a huge impact.
He doesn't shy away from, the nitty-gritty of parenting.
Oh, yeah.
The sleepless nights. The tantrums, the sheer exhaustion of it all.
Totally.
He talks about how babies rely on their caregivers' facial expressions to regulate their own emotions.
It's like they're downloading emotional software.
I love that from their caregivers.
For the people around them.
And he highlights the importance of play.
Oh, yeah.
Those seemingly frivolous activities that are actually crucial for learning and development.
He talks about how Harold was obsessed with peekaboo.
Yes.
My kids were too.
I know.
It was like they could not get enough.
But Brooks is saying there's more to it than just entertainment.
Yeah. I mean, he's suggesting there's a deeper purpose to this.
Right. These games are helping Harold develop an understanding of patterns, predictability, which are essential for making sense of the world. Brooks argues that all these early experiences lay the foundation for a child's ability to learn, adapt, and really thrive
in this crazy,
in this complex world. He also delves into this concept of attachment, drawing on the work of John Bowlby.
Yeah,
Bowlby argued that that our early attachment experiences with our caregivers create these internal working models that shape how we expect relationships to be and how we behave in relationships
throughout our lives. So those early bonds we form with our parents or caregivers can have this really long-lasting impact on how we relate to other people.
Like a secure attachment where a child feels safe and loved and cared for can set the stage for healthier relationship patterns later in life.
No, it's not a guarantee.
Right.
But it's a good...
Yeah, it lays a strong foundation.
Good foundation.
Brooks illustrates these patterns beautifully in the story of Rob and Julia. We see how Rob's really secure upbringing influenced how he approached relationships, while Julia's more chaotic childhood led to, some insecurities and anxieties.
Yeah, and those patterns can be like passed down through generations.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but also kind of scary to think about how those like intergenerational patterns play out. It makes you realize like how important it is to break those negative cycles.
To create more secure attachments for future generations.
This brings us to like one of Brooks's main points.
Which is
that we are fundamentally wired for connection.
He goes so far as to say that we can't actually thrive without it.
Wow, that's a big statement.
I know.
He brings in like all this research showing that social isolation is really detrimental to our physical and mental health.
Yeah.
It's not just about like feeling lonely.
Right.
It can actually like shorten our lifespans.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Wow, and he ties this back to like our evolution, right?
He does. He says that we evolved to live in groups.
Right.
To cooperate.
Yeah.
To care for each other.
To be social creatures.
Our brains are literally wired for social interaction.
Yeah. And so this need for connection,
right?
It's not just like some fluffy feel-good thing.
Yeah,
it's like essential.
Fundamental to who we are.
And he talks about how important institutions are, like schools, churches,
community organizations.
Just kind of creating this this sense of...
He sees these institutions as playing a vital role in shaping our social fabric, providing that framework for meaningful interaction.
Yeah, and collective action.
And he's concerned about the decline of what he calls social capital. Those networks of trust and reciprocity that kind of bind us together.
Right.
He sees that decline as having really negative consequences for our well-being.
Yeah.
And even for, the health of our democracy.
So it's like a call to action.
It is.
To invest in our relationships, strengthen our communities, rebuild these institutions.
Rebuild those connections.
Yeah, exactly that. Like connect us to
something larger than ourselves.
Something bigger than ourselves.
Now, I want to touch on the last theme we'll explore, which is the search for meaning and wisdom.
Oh, the big questions.
The big questions.
Yeah.
Brooks shows how Harold and Erica, even with all their outward success, they're still grappling with this question.
So it's like, what is the meaning of life?
Oh, exactly.
That's something we're all,
I think,
kind of searching for.
And Brooks explores different pathways to meaning.
Okay, like what?
He talks about the importance of work that's both challenging and fulfilling. Not just about earning a paycheck, but about finding something that gives you a sense of purpose and contribution.
So it's about aligning your work with your values.
Yeah.
Finding something you actually care about.
And he also emphasizes the importance of relationships.
Yeah.
Those deep, meaningful connections.
The ones that nourish your soul.
That nourish your soul, that provide love and support and a sense of belonging.
And what about spirituality?
He touches on that too. The role of spirituality and transcendence in this search for meaning.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
It is.
Because, like, how do you talk about that without getting into, like, specific religious beliefs?
Well, he's not advocating for any particular religion or belief system.
Okay.
But he does argue that that humans have this natural yearning for something beyond the material world.
Right. It's like that sense of awe and wonder.
Exactly.
A connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And he explores different ways that people have tried to connect with this this transcendent realm.
Like what?
Through art, music, nature, religious practice.
Yeah. And he also talks about character, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what it means to be a good person.
He believes that, qualities like humility, compassion, courage, integrity are essential for navigating this, the complexity of life and for finding true happiness.
So it's not just about achieving, like, external success.
No, it's also about cultivating our inner lives and striving to be better human beings.
Totally. And Brooks shows how Harold and Erica, through their own journeys, kind of come to embody these virtues in their own way.
Their journeys remind us that that meaning and wisdom are often found through, trials and tribulations.
Like you have to go through the hard stuff.
You do. It's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience, the good and the bad.
And learning from it.
And learning from it all.
Now, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about something that Brooks touches on that I think is so relevant to our lives today.
What's that?
This idea that we are living in an age of cognitive overload.
We are?
It's like we are bombarded with information from all directions all the time.
Brooks argues that this deluge of information can be really overwhelming, impacting our attention spans, our ability to focus, and even our capacity for, deep thought.
Yeah. It's like we're so used to just like skimming the surface.
Skimming the surface, sacrificing depth for breadth.
Totally. And it's not just the quantity, but it's also the speed. Like it's coming at us so fast.
It's relentless.
It's constantly like switching tasks, checking emails, scrolling through social media, bombarded with notifications.
It's like our brains are on overdrive.
Yeah. Trying to keep up.
But Brooks does offer some hope.
Okay.
He doesn't just, diagnose the problem.
Right.
He offers some strategies for how to navigate this cognitive overload.
Like what?
He talks about the importance of carving out time for solitude and reflection.
So like creating those spaces where you can just like disconnect.
Disconnect from the constant stream of information and reconnect with yourself.
And just be,
allowing your mind to wander, to process, to make connections.
It's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Yeah.
Giving yourself permission to like slow down and breathe.
He also emphasizes the importance of cultivating mindfulness, being present.
In the moment?
Yeah.
Savoring the simple things.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important, like especially now when everything is so fast-paced.
It's about shifting our focus from that constant stream of thoughts and distractions to the richness of the present moment.
I love that. What else?
And Brooks also encourages us to be more discerning about the information we consume.
Okay, so be picky.
Yeah, be picky. Yeah. Curate your media diet.
Use quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Yeah, be intentional about what you let into your mind, your heart.
It's about taking back control of your attention and choosing to focus on what truly matters.
Love it. So we've talked about cognitive overload.
Right.
Now I want to talk about Brooks's exploration of culture.
Yeah.
Because this is something that I think is like so powerful.
So powerful, but often unseen.
Yeah.
So how does Brooks highlight this?
Yeah. How does he bring this to life for us? Well, he gives us some fascinating examples.
Okay.
He discusses how Americans and Chinese people, scan scenes differently.
Right. We talked about that a little before.
We did.
Yeah.
Americans tend to focus on that central object,
right,
while Chinese people are more likely to take in the whole scene, including the background.
It's like we're literally seeing the world.
We are.
Through these different lenses.
Through different lenses.
Yeah.
And Brooks argues that these differences, they extend to all aspects of our lives.
Give me an example.
Okay. He talks about how different cultures respond to alcohol.
Right.
Some become more aggressive. Others become more amorous.
Right. And it's all shaped by these unspoken cultural norms.
Norms and expectations.
So interesting.
And Brooks explains that that these cultural differences are a product of, those emergent systems.
Or the ant colony.
The ant colony.
It's like we're all part of this giant ant colony.
The great analogy.
Culture.
Yeah. And it highlights the fact that that cultures aren't static.
Right. They're constantly changing.
Constantly evolving.
Right.
Shaped by, by the actions and beliefs of the people within that society.
So it's like this constant dance between the individual and the collective.
The collective.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about social class.
Okay.
Because Brooks brings this in as another layer of, how culture can shape us.
He highlights the work of sociologist Annette Lareau, who studied the, the child rearing practices of middle class and working class families.
And she found some really interesting differences.
She did.
Right.
She found that middle class parents tend to engage in what she called concerted cultivation.
Concerted cultivation.
Of their children.
What does that mean?
They enroll their kids in lots of organized activities. They encourage them to reason and negotiate with adults.
Right.
And they really emphasize language development and critical thinking skills.
So they're really actively involved in, like, shaping their kids' experience.
Preparing them for success in a competitive world.
Right. Whereas the working class parents took more of a...
She called it a natural growth approach.
Natural growth,
Yeah, they provide love and care, but they don't structure their kids' lives as rigidly.
So it's more like hands-off.
Yeah, more hands-off.
What are the implications of these different approaches?
Well, Brooks argues that these different parenting styles can have significant consequences for kids' later success in life.
Right, because those middle-class kids, with all of their honed verbal skills and their comfort with navigating institutions,
they're better equipped.
They're just more set up for success.
In the modern economy.
Yeah, it's not about saying that one parenting style is better than the other.
No, not at all.
Right, it's about recognizing how these cultural patterns can create unequal opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, and Brooks is really concerned about this growing divide.
Growing divide between these two worlds.
Yeah.
He sees it as a threat to social mobility and a real challenge for creating a more equitable society.
It's a tough problem.
It is a tough problem.
Does Brooks offer any solutions?
He does. He talks about the importance of early childhood education as a way to level the playing field.
So giving kids from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Giving them a better start.
A better start.
A stronger foundation.
Yeah.
He believes that that high-quality preschool programs can help to close that achievement gap.
So it's not just about, academics.
No, it's
about addressing these deeper societal inequalities. He also talks about, affordable housing, job training.
Yeah, creating more opportunities for social and economic mobility.
It's about making sure that everyone has a fair shot.
Everyone has a fair shot, regardless of their background.
Yeah, love that. Now, we've talked about culture, we've talked about social class. Now, I want to talk about this, this idea of character.
Oh, yeah.
Because Brooks really emphasizes this.
He does. He argues that that character is just as important as intellect when it comes to living a successful and fulfilling life.
So it's not just about, how smart you are.
No, it's also about who you are.
Yeah, how you treat people.
How you treat people, your values, your integrity.
Yeah, those things that make you, a good person.
Yeah, he defines character as a set of virtues and dispositions that allow us to navigate the complexities of life, build strong relationships, and contribute to the common good.
So it's those qualities that make you a good person.
A good person, a good friend, good citizen.
Yeah.
He highlights qualities like humility, compassion, courage, grit, self-control.
Yeah, all the good stuff.
All the good stuff as being essential for thriving in all aspects of life.
And so the question is, how do we cultivate those virtues? Are we just born with them?
Well, Brooks believes that that these qualities can be cultivated through practice, mentorship, and engagement in meaningful activities.
So it's not something that just happens.
No, it's something you have to work at.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the importance of having role model mentors.
Yeah, people who embody those virtues.
Exactly.
And creating environments where those qualities are
where they're valued.
Valued and nurtured.
He sees a role for institutions like schools, churches, community organizations in fostering character development.
It's we have to create this culture.
We do.
That supports these positive character traits.
And we have to recognize that that character isn't something we're born with.
It's something we develop.
It's something we develop over time. Through effort and intention.
That's so powerful. It's an invitation to take responsibility for our own character.
And to contribute to creating a more virtuous society.
Love it. So as we wrap up this section, I want to go back to this idea that we talked about earlier about finding that balance between head and heart.
Brooks is arguing for a more holistic view of human nature.
Yes.
One that recognizes the interplay of reason and emotion, conscious and unconscious processes, individual and social influences.
It's so complex.
It is complex.
But it's also, like, so beautiful. It's to think about all these different pieces kind of coming together.
To make us who we are.
To make us who we are.
And he's encouraging us to embrace that complexity.
Yes.
To be more curious about ourselves and each other.
And to be more compassionate.
And to approach life with a more nuanced and compassionate understanding. Yeah. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I want to pose a question to you and to our listeners. Thinking about everything we've discussed, all these different aspects of human behavior, all this complexity, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by it all? That's a great question. Yeah, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah, where do we even begin? You know, it is easy to feel overwhelmed, especially these days when we're constantly bombarded with information and, you know, all this pressure to make the right decisions.
Yeah, to figure it all out. But I think the first step is just remembering that you're not alone in this.
Right.
We all struggle with these complexities. We all feel lost sometimes.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in your own head.
It is.
And think that everyone else has it figured out.
And forget that everyone else is going through similar challenges.
Yeah, totally.
So we're all in this together.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
And that leads to my next piece of advice.
Okay.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Cultivate self-compassion.
Yeah.
It's okay to not have all the answers.
Right.
To make mistakes, to feel overwhelmed sometimes.
We're all works in progress, right?
We are all works in progress, constantly learning and evolving.
Yeah.
And, you know, another thing that can be helpful is focusing on what you can control.
Okay.
We can't control everything that happens to us.
Right. Life throws curveballs.
All the time.
Yeah.
But we can control how we respond.
Right.
How we choose to see the world, how we treat ourselves and others.
Yeah. Yeah. Find that sense of agency.
Exactly.
Even amidst all the craziness.
It's like we may not be able to control the waves, but we can learn to surf.
I love that. So good.
And that brings me to another important piece of advice.
Okay.
Connect with others.
Yes.
Build meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
You know, remember, we're social animals.
Right.
We need connection to thrive.
That was like Brooks's big point.
It was reach out to friends and family. Join a club or group that interests you.
Right.
Volunteer in your community. Find ways to give back and connect with something larger than yourself. You know, all these connections can provide a sense of belonging, purpose, support, all of which can be incredibly grounding when you're feeling lost.
Yeah, because they remind you that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're part of something bigger.
Exactly.
So we've got to be kind to ourselves. We've got to connect with others. What else can we do?
Be curious.
Oh, I like that.
Embrace lifelong learning.
Yeah.
You know, the world is full of wonder and mystery.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Explore new ideas. Challenge your own assumptions.
Curiosity is such a powerful thing.
It is.
Because it keeps you, like, engaged. Open.
Open to new possibilities.
Open to new possibilities.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that learning is a lifelong journey.
Totally. Not a destination.
Not a destination.
Yeah. Always more to learn.
So much more to learn.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the social animal.
It's been a really fascinating exploration.
Yeah, we've covered so much.
From the depths of our unconscious minds to the powerful influences of culture and environment.
Yeah.
The complexities of decision-making.
Right.
And that eternal search for meaning.
Yeah. And I think through it all, what really stands out to me is the importance of approaching life with a sense of curiosity.
Yeah.
Compassion.
And a willingness to
learn and grow.
To learn and grow.
I think that's beautifully put.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into the social animal if you haven't already.
Yeah.
Reflect on how these concepts show up in your own lives. Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay connected. And keep seeking those aha moments that illuminate the human experience.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect way to end our deep dive.
Thanks for joining me on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we'll see you next time for another Deep Dive Free Jump.